Hello, everyone. This is Kyle Constant, the chair of the Missouri Evergreen Reports Committee. This is another video in our series of training videos for some fundamental principles of the reports module. Again, this is part of a series, so in order to find the rest of those, you can go to our consortial site, moevergreenlibraries.org, go to Member Resources and Reports Training Materials, click on that, and you'll see an embedded player that will have the entire playlist ready to go. There's also a list of the titles of these videos, so you can kind of decide where you feel comfortable picking up. But if you have zero experience, you can actually start at the beginning and get started with the reporter. Okay, so for this template or this video, I want to share with you all how to set up a recurring report. For this video, I'm not going to go into too much detail about setting up a report to run one time. That's something that we covered in a previous video. So some of these details I'm going to be glossing over. If you haven't watched that video and feel like that's something you need to go through, go back and take a look at that one. But I'm going to be using this template called Daily Circ Count, and this is out of the shared folders under Templates, ME Reports, Library Circulations, and Counts. So again, I'm just going to kind of fill in some of these so that you can see I am setting this up in much the same way as I would if I was going to run it once. I am going to skip over the date right now because I need to come back and cover that in a little bit more detail. You can really set this up however you want. Let's say that I wanted to remove bar charts, I can do that. But after the output options, the next few lines are really important for setting up recurring reports. So the first is just a checkbox to say, yes, this is a recurring report. So you want to check that so that you're saying, yes, I do want this to recur. Then the next line is a recurrence interval. So you have your quantity drop down here. So it's just a drop down with a bunch of numbers in it. And then you have your unit number, or excuse me, your unit drop down. So days, weeks, and months. So depending on how often you want this to run, in a lot of cases, especially with circulation reports, if you're going to set it up to recur, many of you are going to want to set this up for board reporting, and that tends to happen on a monthly basis. So you may want this to happen every 1 month. But you really can do this however you like. If you were wanting to keep a really close eye on something and maybe it's not a circulation report, whatever it may be, you could set it up for a week, set this up to recur, and then you'll get a new report every week. So then you want to set when you want it to run next. By default, this box is checked, run as soon as possible. But let's say that you feel pretty confident that you've got it set up the way that you want, and you're fine waiting until, say, the first of the next month to run a circulation report. You can uncheck this box, come in here and say, I'm going to run it on the 1st of May because that's when my circulation statistics will be ready from April. And some of these reports, especially if you're setting them up to recur and run automatically, you may want to run them in the middle of the night. A couple of reasons that you would want to do that. One is, presumably in many cases on the 1st of the month you're going to be working that day, but by the time you get there, your report for circulation, if you were doing this on a month-by-month basis and setting it up every time, you would have to run it when you get there. This way, when you arrive at work on the 1st of May, you should have a report output ready for you to view. Another reason is that if you run a report and it's a recurring report and it doesn't really matter what time of day that it runs, it's better to run it in the middle of the night because any resources that it may be using on the server side, if it's in the middle of the night, it's much less likely to impact any users than if you were to run it during the middle of the day. So, sometime between midnight and 5 a.m. probably would be a good idea. So I'm just going to grab 3 a.m. as a good example and use that as my time. The next line is where I'm going to have a completion notification sent. Um, if you're running a report one time and you're running it immediately, you don't always need to have an email notification. But again, if it takes a long time for the report to run, or if it's recurring and you're setting it up to run in the middle of the night or a time that you wouldn't ordinarily be checking the output folder in the reporter and you just want a notification, then you can set this up. It doesn't have to be a recurring report, but that's where it is really useful. So in this case, I'll just set this up to send it to my email at work and choose a folder to save the output. So everything else is set up except for the date. The reason that I wanted to show you the date is if I was going in here to set this up for monthly statistics, I could grab the 1st of March as my start date and the 31st of March as my end date, and that would give me my circulation statistics for the entire month of March. In this case, this report is giving us both checkout date and time and number of circulations. So what it's going to output is each day will be listed as its own separate row, and the number of circulations will be in the adjacent column, letting you know how many items circulated on that day. So if you do it for an entire month, you'll have every day of the month represented, at least all of the days of the month where something circulated. So if you're closed on Sundays, there would likely be no Sundays listed. But anyway, at any rate, if you're running this one time, real dates work just fine. It's not a big issue. But if you set it up to recur and you use a real date like this, each time it runs, you're going to get the exact same output. So in other words, I'm going to continue to get the 1st of March 2021 through the 31st of March 2021. It's not going to adjust based on the time that it's running. So what you need to do in order to make that happen is use relative dates. So you use this drop down and change it to relative dates, and then at that point you can still set up a span. So we still have this between operator. You can set up a span. In some scenarios, this would actually work just fine with a number of days ago. For instance, I have this set up for this report currently to run every week. So if I was wanting to know how many items circulated each day for the last week, and I wanted to just have that report sent to me every week, and I could keep a close eye on the circulation of a given branch each week. I could set this first drop down to 7 days. You want this to be the earliest date, so that would be 7 days ago. And then, so this is the start of your span, and then the second number is going to be the end of your span, so 1 day ago, and so that will be the last week, and it's going to run each week. The first time will be on the 1st of May. So if that's what you wanted to have listed, then this would work just fine. However, if you want an entire month's circulation in one report, the unit here, days ago, kind of presents a problem because months have different numbers of days. So one month you're going to need to say 30 days, some months you're going to have to say 31, other months you're going to have to say 28 or 29 if it's a leap year. So there's an inherent problem with this unit, and unfortunately it does not have a drop down to allow you to change that. So what we're going to have to do is change this. So this is the basics of recurring reports, so you can kind of see those principles, but I'm going to show you now how to make this an easier thing to do on a monthly basis. I'm going to go back to the folder that this template came out of, which again is under Shared Folders, Templates, ME Reports, Circulations and Counts, and I'm going to grab Daily Circ Count. And this time, instead of creating a new report, I'm going to clone this. So I'm going to click Submit, choose where I want this cloned version of this report to live and select it. Now, again, I'm not going to go into the details of cloning because that was covered in another video. If you don't feel comfortable with cloning, please go watch that video. First thing I'm going to do is set this title to be something that I'm going to remember. So I'm just going to call this Kyle, it's this one. So that as I'm looking for this template later to show you how this changed, I will definitely know which one it is. So then we scroll down here, and by default our display fields are listed, but we don't want to adjust a display field, we want to adjust a filter. So we're going to click this tab. Now we can see our filters, and the date that we're going to need to adjust, the only date really that's listed here, is the checkout date and time. So that's still what we want to use because this is still a circulation report, so we want to base our filtering on the checkout date and time. So the field itself, or the data source itself, is fine. What we need to change is the field transform. Right now it's just set up as a date. What we want to do is right click on that row, go to change transform, and instead of date you're going to want year plus month as your option. Now something else that I'm going to recommend that you do, instead of having a span, let's change this operator. The operator being between allows you to have that span of dates and have two different date fields. That's great when you're using real dates. It's not always necessary if you're using relative dates. So let's go ahead and change this operator to equals. Okay? So we have done two things. We changed the operator to equals, and we changed the field transform to year and month. We're going to save this template, and then now it's in my folders, so wherever you happen to save this, just remember where you put it. And here we have this one that says Kyle, it's this one. So that's the one that we're going to want to create a new template with, or excuse me, create a new report with. And again, I'm just going to fill in some things that are not super important. I'm not actually going to run this. But now you can see that this date is pretty different. So it's gonna say equals. We're going to assume that we're doing a recurring report, so I'm going to change this to a relative date. But before I do that, again, remember I changed this to year and month rather than a date. So when I go to relative date, you can see now the unit is months ago. So now, however I want to set this up, but many of you are probably going to want to do this for 1 month ago, what this is telling Evergreen is to give you the circulation, all the circulation data, however it is set up to display for this template. So in this case, it's going to display, it's still going to display each day and the number of circulations, but it's only going to do that for days where the month equals exactly 1 month ago from when it's being run. So in this case, if we change this again to the the 5th month, May, and the first day of May to run for the first time, then it's going to be looking at the middle number for the month, and it's going to be looking for a 4. So when it runs and it gives you those circulations, it's going to give you every circulation that occurred in April of 2021. But the nice thing is, because it's a relative date and it's 1 month ago, and you have this recurring, excuse me, I didn't set this up yet, recurring once a month on the 1st, then this is going to first run on the 1st of May 2021, and then every month after that, and again, sending a notification to my email, and it's going to give you all of the circulation from 1 month ago. So again, that kind of sounds like it's only going to give you the circulation statistics from exactly a month ago, but it's actually giving you everything from the entire month. And again, just set up your report otherwise the way that you would normally want it to run with your folders and all of your other criteria, and that's how you would change that date so that it could run on a recurring basis and still give you monthly statistics, and be able to change that unit so that it's usable. Okay, well this was the basics of setting up recurring reports. If I hope that this was informative. If there are other elements to running reports that you want to know more about, please do get in touch with me or someone else on the reports committee and let us know, and we can add that to our list of available training. Again, I hope that this series of videos is beneficial to you and your staff, and until next time, hope you enjoy using the reporter. Thank you.